Hi, everybody. Tommy here, World at War Comics, and my next guest I'm extremely excited to talk to. It is none other than the Christopher Priest. You know him from his Milestone days, his Vampirella, which he currently has, and everything in between. Christopher is an amazing comic book creator and writer, and I had a blast talking to him. All right, without further ado, here is Christopher and I. Get out there and make sure that you get the brand new Sonja Reborn coming this August from Dynamite Comics. All right, here's Christopher and I. Well, hello, everyone. Welcome to World at War Comics. I have the amazing Mr. Christopher Priest here. You know him from Milestone Comics to several Marvel with the Black Panther run, all kinds of amazing comic books. Also, didn't realize this, Christopher, but quite the singer as well. Having I don't know
All
if you want
right.
to talk a little bit about that, but obviously writing for TV, you do a little bit of everything. Amazing career, and I'm really excited to talk to you today. Thanks for joining me.
Hey, nice to meet you. Thanks for having me on. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. Well, I don't even know where to start with you, Christopher. You have such an amazing history and you've touched so many amazing characters. I know today we're talking about Sonja Reborn with Dynamite Comics, your next title with them. Obviously, you got the Vampirella going on right now over at Dynamite, which is banging. But really excited about the Sonja, especially with you and your background with Conan from the editor standpoint and the writing standpoint. I think you're like the perfect person to handle Red Sonja, which is a great character. I don't know how excited you are of touching Sonja again with your Conan background, and have you ever thought of possibly going back and writing a little bit of Conan, especially now that the Savage Sword is out and they always have these kind of short stories in there?
You know, I never thought I was any good at that. I'm really kind of surprised that a lot of that work has been reprinted as much as it has. I was a very young writer. I was just getting started, and just kind of figuring out the world. Um, so I think, if anything, the Sony Reborn is kind of my Conan apology tour. It's like, let me see if I can make up for some of that stuff that I did, like, a million years ago.
No, not at all. I can't remember the issues. I think it was around 200, somewhere in that range where you did some issues, which I have somewhere in one of my long boxes. But yeah, pretty excited to have you back on that title. What are your plans with Sonya? Is it going to be like a six-part series?
Well, I think that what we're doing is we're probably just kind of taking it like one stage at a time, like the old Apollo missions where you send the rocket up with the Saturn V, and then stage one drops off, and then stage two lights up and it takes you up at the higher orbit, and then stage two falls off, and it really depends on if we find an audience, and if the audience doesn't want to kill me. I'm doing a very unconventional approach to the character. I kind of had to get talked into it. Um, it's not that I did not want to work on Red Sonja. I don't think I don't think I acquitted myself very well with the character when I did write it, a million years ago. So I had a lot of trepidation about signing on to it, and Matt Idelson, my editor, kind of twisted my arm, and we worked out some things. But basically, with every character that I think any writer takes on, the first question they have is, what new thing or different thing do I have to say with this character? Like, what would my purpose be writing the character, and why would my take on the character be any different from anybody else's? You don't want to just come aboard a character and just do like the same old business as usual. You want to go, all right, you want to exercise your voice. It's kind of like what we did with Panther, where
Yeah.
they had to kind of talk me into doing that too, and and I kind of brought my own point of view to the character, just as every other writer has.
Yeah, a lot of noise around this comic book, Christopher. You certainly brought your own storyline to that, man. That's all the talk of the town, as you know, for the last week or so, which I love.
Yeah,
It's incredible.
yeah, it's interesting. We did this Superman Lost thing last year, and was Eisner nominated for it. And it's like nobody, there was not any noise about that at all. Let's put it that way, and I'm like, why are people paying so much attention to this? It's just, it's very, at any rate, it's just one of these things that just, uh, you try to, uh, I get tired of reading the same comic book over and over again. So you try to do something new, you try to innovate, and sometimes sometimes it's a swing and a miss, and sometimes it's a hit, and you never know until you get there, until you're there. Um, so with Sonja, what we're doing is kind of radical. I'm taking a woman uh, from the modern world, this woman named Margaret or Maggie. I'm taking Maggie from from Maggie from the modern world. Say that three times fast, and hurling her into the Hyborian age, um, and trying to basically what I'm doing is kind of a deconstruction, not just on Red Sonja, but a deconstruction on the whole sword and sorcery genre. Um, I've read a lot of sword and sorcery. I've written a bunch of sword and sorcery, and a lot of it really doesn't get into like the weeds of the practical day to day. How does this work? How do people actually survive in this environment? How do they move? How do they, what's the economics of the environment? What's the practical concerns? Like for example, in issue two, she gets attacked by, the big scaly monster, and she hurls her sword at the big scaly monster, and the monster skitters back into the bush, right? And then her squire comes along, and she's kind of dusting herself off, and she's like, "Well, let's get out of here." I scared off the big scaly monster. Let's beat it. You know, and the squire, who's this kid, he's this little kid named Fowlin, and Fowlin says, "Okay, sure, but first we have to go retrieve your sword." And she goes, "What do you mean?" So, well, you stuck your sword in the monster. We have to go back in those dark woods and find the monster and get your sword back. And she's like, "Oh, screw that. Let's get out of here. I'll just get another one." And he doesn't understand. What do you mean another one? Another what? There's another sword. It's surely you have like, we'll just go to the store. We'll buy another sword. Where do you get swords from? I mean, a sword is a very personal item, and they're very hard to come by, and usually they're custom made. And when you're, a person of Sonja's size and stature and body weight, it has to be a certain length, a certain, weight to it, and a certain balance and all that stuff. So it's like the practical concerns. There is no sword store. When it's dinner time, there is no supermarket. There's no drive-through. Where do you go to the bathroom in Hyboria? What happens if you get like, if you get an infection or something? So these are the kind of things that we're looking at with, in the series, where we're just taking a real dry-eyed, hard look at what life would really be like for a 5'8", 125-pound woman. How does she survive in this environment where everything and everyone is out to kill her? So that's kind of like the elevator pitch. One thing I liked about Matt Reeves' The Batman, that film, was how he handled the stereotypical, the trope of the strong female character. So you had like Zoe Kravitz's Catwoman, and she was capable, she was thoughtful, she was a good fighter, she was athletic, she had all those qualities. But at the same time, she had to earn the strong female character label, if you will. She had to. The character was, had to earn the audience's respect and earn the audience's had to earn that had earned that validity. Because as powerful as she is, and as skilled as she was, and as athletic as she was, and as smart as she was, what happened the first time she meets Batman is that he effortlessly pins her to the table, with one hand, which is what would happen if a 5'6", 120-pound woman was fighting this 6'2" guy who was trained by the League of Assassins. So a lot of this over the top stuff where you take the woman and and this is no offense to writers who make way more money than I do and probably way smarter than I am, but the idea of this swashbuckling woman who is just effortlessly wandering through this very dangerous time in the world where there's monsters and sorcerers and barbarians and all kinds of when everything is a threat to her. And she's just like devil may care wandering around and she devil with a sword. That didn't interest me because that just felt like
Yeah.
unrealistic.
Mhm.
And like, in today's marketplace that really doesn't sell. So I thought, well, let's have her earn it. Let's see her get there. Let's take that journey with her. And then let's explain how, and there are ways, that someone of this particular physicality and gender, absolutely can not only survive in this world, but could thrive in it. And that's kind of the moral of this series. It's just sort of just to demonstrate that in a credible way and not just throw her out there or say like, oh, some goddess spit on her and now she has magical powers. No, I just would that just really didn't work for me. So we're doing something, the usual priest subversion, and it's some people's cup of tea, and for some people, it's not their cup of tea. So we'll see if there's an audience for it. We certainly hope so.
Yeah, I think so. And I love the way that you're handling a character of her stature in the Hyborian age. We're all reading Conan. I've been reading Conan for a very long time, and he's coming to near death walking through the Hyborian age. Um,
Yeah,
and he's
and he's
probably
a big guy.
yeah, he's probably
Yeah,
240,
yeah,
six something.
yeah.
So if he's barely making it, you can't have a 120 pound, 5'6" female just whipping through everybody that comes in front of her. It just doesn't make sense, right?
Well, it strains credibility, and it's kind of like among the criticisms that were kind of hurled at the newer Star Wars franchise, where they have the strong female character who is just great at everything she does, and the first time she gets her hands on a MacGuffin, she knows how to work it. The first time she's in the spaceship, she knows how to fly it, that kind of thing. The first time our Sonja climbs aboard a horse, she falls off. Okay. Then she, loses the sword and she has this kid that's with her, this cute kid that's following her around. And usually in the comics or in the movies, you have what's called a sidecar character who becomes the audience's point of view. And the sidecar character is teaching the audience the conceits of the genre that we're in. In this particular case, the lead character is the one who has to learn what a Gunderman is and what are the politics between Aquilonia and the Pictish wilderness, where Aquilonia keeps trying to expand its borders and keeps pushing the Picts closer and closer to the sea, which in turn is making the Picts are not fighting Aquilonia just because they're savages. They're fighting Aquilonia because Aquilonia is oppressing them. So all these things have to be kind of not just taught to the audience, but taught to Sonja herself because she's new here. And this is a whole different way of taking the character as opposed to just, day one, she's an expert at everything and she can beat everybody she runs into and she has no fear, whatever like that. This is a very, if I were thrown into the Hyborian age, I'd be scared out of my mind.
Yeah, me too.
Uh, yeah. So, it's kind of good, good for her. And it's kind of hopefully brings like a new perspective, some warmth, some humor, some poignancy to it. It's the raft of emotions that I strive for with Vampirella, where I try to be,
Mhm.
we have a little of scary stuff and we have a little funny stuff, and then we have a little of the outer space stuff, and and then you have the touching moment in the heartstrings, and then back again. So hopefully this will be that kind of a roller coaster ride, and just a eye opening fun way of approaching the whole genre. So people who don't know Sonja, who've never read Conan, who've never seen a single episode of Game of Thrones, you're welcome. Just come aboard. We'll take you by the hand. You don't have to know anything because Sonja doesn't know anything. So as Sonja learns, we learn, and we go along, and and we figure it out from there. So it should be a fun book. I'm having fun writing it, which is, kind of a warning, I guess. So and I think it comes out in August, so we're all looking
Yeah,
forward to it.
August. Yeah,
Yeah,
August of this year. Yeah, yeah. And actually below, I'll put all the information to make it really easy to get in your comic shops and make sure they have that ordered for you. So I'll take care of all that with all the proper links and whatnot. I mean, it sounds
great.
great and it sounds like a relatable humanity that I think could really help the character as well with popularity. I think that relatability sometimes when any character is just so perfect that nothing negative ever happens to them, it's hard to relate, right? Because those are not human traits. So when you're
Yeah.
able to put failure or, even just disruption in what you're trying to accomplish, that's very relatable. I fail all the time. There's all kinds of disruptions of what I'm trying to do. And I feel like that makes it a lot more relatable. So I'm excited for that one.
Yeah, and there's lots of cutaways to like her life in London and in New York, and we have some flashbacks to that. And there's like a B story of events that led up to her ending up in Hyboria, where you start to see that, like, when you first meet her, she seems to be, the stereotypical, this is a girl reeking of goodness and light, and this innocent person who's tossed into these trying times. But as the story goes on, and we examine this B story of her life before she ended up there, you start to realize that there are many different dimensions to Maggie, and there's some good and bad to it. So she's not all that perfect to begin with. So it's a real journey for her as well. And then ultimately, the question becomes, who is having this nightmare? Is Maggie from London having this nightmare and imagining herself as Red Sonja, or is Red Sonja being manipulated by these? There are these new characters we're introducing. There's always some, some of that going on. Is she being somehow, is Red Sonja being manipulated somehow into hallucinating about this mythical Maggie person? So hopefully, if we do this right, at the end of the day, the audience will be divided between those who think, well, no, it's always Red Sonja and Maggie's the invented part, and those who feel like, no, it's Maggie and Red Sonja was the delusion. So, it should be fun. I hope it's fun. I'm having fun. That's all I care about.
It should be fun. Well, Christopher, do you mind if we look at some of the other things that you've been working on? I know you
Sure.
touched a little bit on this. This has obviously blown up the world this week with your return with Joe at Marvel Knights. Obviously, T'Challa being gone and a maybe a new leader of Wakanda coming. Can you kind of talk about that return to Marvel for Black Panther and what that kind of looked like leading up to issue one?
Well, this was like something we've been working on for quite a long time, and uh, I think that I never really wanted to come back to Panther because I had written Panther. I had written like 60 issues of Panther, and I figured people are just sick of me. I'm sick of me. Why on earth would you want me to come back to Black Panther? So Marvel has actually talked to me a couple of times about either returning to the title or doing something Panther-ish. And I've always said, yeah, Panther is kind of, it belongs to a new generation now, a new generation of writers, new ideas, young minds, fresh ideas, and it was around the time of the run up to the movie, the first movie, that I was in contact with the studio, and they were talking to a bunch of us about the character and where we think the plot lines in the movie should go. So there was some consultation there, and I wanted to do uh, a like one-off a Black Panther thing, So I called up Will Moss, the Black Panther editor at Marvel, and said, "Hey, Will, is there like a one-off thing, just a little bit of something that I could do that could be in print around the time that the movie comes out?" So that's pretty much how I got involved in it. And Will graciously opened up a slot on a Black Panther annual, and we did a 10-pager or something together, and that was a hoot, and it did what I wanted it to do. And at some point, I was talking to Joe about it and said, "Hey, I'm doing this thing for Will and so forth and so on." And we were just having a conversation about it. I did not know that Joe was making plans to do some sort of event for Marvel Knight's 20th anniversary. Um, and that's kind of how that spark began. And so we started having a bunch of conversations, but it really wasn't until I came across a plot idea that appealed to me. I said, well, I just couldn't figure out a story I wanted to do, you know, um, and then at some point I went, uh, eh, and I can't tell you what the story idea is, except that it has nothing to do with race or with
Hmm.
who his son is. That's not the idea. We'll get to the idea. What's a couple of these issues are out. You and I will talk again. And I
Yeah.
go, that was the idea, but finally, Joe and I had several conversations, and this particular bit of business intrigued me. I said, well, you know what? The way I structured Black Panther, uh, I went back to Stan Lee and Jack Kirby and Fantastic Four 52, where Panther was always like a step ahead of his enemies, if not several step ahead of his enemies, and he was sharp and he was inventive and he had all these technical toys and all this other stuff here, you know, uh, and I kind of wrote him for a long time as this mastermind, this Sherlock Holmes level thinker, a brilliant mind, and that his superpower was not the claws or the heart-shaped herb. His superpower was just his strategical skills and his ability to outthink his enemies and his pre-planning and preparation and all that other stuff. You know, I kind of followed that formula for 5 years or however long it was that I was on that book. So I thought, like, if I could find a way to throw a monkey wrench into that formula, that might appeal to me, to challenge myself uh, to to trip him up, somehow. And I can't say more than that without spoiling what's coming up. But like I said, we'll talk again. And once that idea kind of came across, I went, okay, I'm in. All right. I'll suit up for this. Because I know how to do this. It's just, can Christopher Priest write a story that upends everything he knows about Black Panther? you know, and just turns it on a dime, and that was the challenge. And I think that that's been worthwhile to kind of invest myself in. And then it was just a matter of Joe finding the time to draw it because he's Joe Quesada.
Yeah. Oh, you're Christopher Priest, so I'm glad that you're back on it, Christopher,
Yeah,
because
but I can write faster than he can draw.
that's
So
true. That's true. Good point. Good point. But issue one was amazing. As you know, if you're on social media very often, that's every TikTok, every Instagram page is talking about how the story ended. I'm glad that you said, look, guys, relax. You're gonna get to two, issue three, and then you're gonna understand what's really going on. Because, like you said, I think race has kind of taken over everything at the end of this, which is really exciting because everyone's talking about Marvel Knights, and I think it's working.
yeah, but I don't know. See, I'm not on social media, so I'm not on Facebook or
That's
Reddit. I'm
really
not
smart, to
on,
be honest, Christopher. That's pretty smart.
well, I'm old. I just don't have the time. And when I'm not writing, which is rare, when I'm not writing, I just want to go ride my bicycle and, have a life. So I'm really not, so I'm aware of some of it, But it's kind of like we're living in this age now, where somebody writes a headline, and somebody reads the headline, reacts to the headline, writes their own headline, and then somebody reads that headline and reacts to that, and then then a fourth person comes along and puts all the three headlines together, and uses the three headlines as like, their justification for whatever their particular point of view. Read the book. It irritates me that some of this that I've seen is so far off and bizarre. I went, read the book, and also that, we're just getting started. It's like, like you're listening to old Motown music. So here's what the Temptations, right?
Uh,
And you put the needle on the record and you hear the scratch, 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 because it was starting the music, right? Scratch, scratch, scratch. And then the intro starts, and you hear that backbeat, do 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 do, and you're waiting for the Temptations to start singing. We just started singing. Relax. We
Relax,
just
everybody.
we just started singing. We haven't even gotten to the chorus yet, And I'm like, whatever happened in issue number one, that's the least interesting thing about this series. You ain't seen nothing yet. Joe is crazy. He's dragged me into places I've never thought I'd be in
Yeah.
this friggin' book. And I'm like, is that what they're freaking out about? Oh God. We're just getting, trust me, we're just getting warmed up.
I love it. I love it. Well, I'm in for it. I think it's amazing. The other thing that happened recently, and let me see if I can find, oh, right here. I don't know if you got your hands on Heavy Metal through their Kickstarter. It is back again. And I,
Oh,
uh,
I did not know that.
Yes, so this is their first issue of the kind of the bringing back of heavy metal. So we got the Frazetta cover right there, but all kinds of awesome stories in here. So this, I think I got it in the mail maybe 3 weeks ago from the Kickstarter, and I believe that on a quarterly basis it will be coming out again. And you probably know where I'm going with this, but we had a little bit of an entrance in, I think it was issue 318 of one of your creations, Entropy. And then we got an issue one. And then with
Yep.
everything happening at Heavy Metal, I'm not sure if there is still story to be told, but is there a possibility of getting more of that?
Well, there's always a possibility. I don't know who's running heavy metal these days, so I should probably find out. And if heavy metal people are watching this, maybe drop us a line so we know. But Entropy was a 5 or 6 issues. I can't remember which. I think it's five. Um, it is completely written, drawn. It is completely inked, lettered, and I think mostly colored. Several issues have covers on them. It's all on somebody's hard drive. It's completely done. And I've actually been shopping around looking for someone, who wants to step in and either license it from heavy metal or make some kind of deal where they, heavy metal's brand is still on it and they, release it, or whatever the story is. So, I'm actively trying to get that to rescue that book from purgatory because this kid Montos.
Hmm.
Joe Illidge was the editor, and Joe found Montos. I don't know where under a rock somewhere. I don't know where he found this guy, but the art is incredible. Forget me. The art on Entropy is just it's mind blowing. And I think Montos is drawing Green Lantern now. He's been drawing Green Lantern for a while, and God bless him.
He's
That
doing
his career,
great too.
yeah, that his career's taken over. But this thing is what got his attention because I sent this stuff over to DC, and then I got him to do some work on Black Adam, and then DC picked him up for Green Lantern. So yet another career started by Christopher.
There you go.
Um,
It would
but
be
yeah, but this book is done. Robbie, it's done. Let's get it out so people can read it. That would be awesome.
I'm dying to find out what happens after that first issue that I picked up. And I went back to my comic book store and he goes, I don't see it anymore. I don't know what happened to it. And then obviously we know heavy metal, went the way that it went. But
Yeah, yeah, yeah. The book is it's a little deranged, but then again, it's heavy metal. So like,
yeah,
with heavy metal, you kind of have license to operate without discipline or restraint. And believe me, we went there. We operated without discipline or restraint, and it's about, as out there. It's kind of I think I used to make a joke about it, calling it like it's kind of Green Lantern if DC had balls, you know. Like if they really, if you really thought that through, giving like ultimate power to a human being and what that would do to the human mind and what would, eventually happen with them. And it's not that even that DC doesn't have balls. It's that much like Marvel, DC is now corporate owned, and they would never let us go there with the. I couldn't even write this on Black Label. Not what we did with Entropy. I couldn't get away with it. Even in Black Label. So but it's kind of along that lines of. I mean, there's no Green Lantern Corps or anything, but it's the kind of idea where Joe Everyman, this mailman,
Hmm.
uh, gets this cosmic power and accidentally blows up his planet. And he ends up getting blackmailed by this demigod. And it's like, look, I'll put it all back. I'll give you your family back. I'll put the world back where you left it, if you become my Silver Surfer or whatever, So there's a bunch of concepts in there, but it's just this friggin' genius, like the second issue that you did not see takes place on this planet where everything is built sideways. And Matos, actually, I assume he speaks English,
Yeah.
but that's not his first language. So I was worried that, like, okay, I'm writing a very complicated script where I'm trying to explain to him everything on this planet, all the buildings, instead of the skyscrapers being built this way, they're all built that way, horizontally, and you have to somehow express this without losing the reader, and I was terrified of it, and he did such a great job. It's as good as first issue is. Second issue is mind blowing. I'm talking about the art now. It's
Yeah.
just friggin' mind blowing. you know so yeah, this was like an incredible achievement on Joseph Illage's, the editor's part, because he's the one who assembled this team and put together this whole heavy metal universe idea. um and it's just too bad that they ran out of money before they could fully execute this thing. And if the Kickstarter helps get those wheels turned, that'd be great. I think that they should also just maybe just gather up all 5 issues,
Yeah.
release that as a graphic novel, do that as a Kickstarter.
Great.
Um, it's a fun read. It's gorgeous art, and it's all done. That's the part that really irritates me, is that it's not like you were waiting on anything. It's in the can, and it just hasn't been released yet. So hopefully one day.
Yeah. Hopefully one day. I love that issue, and I'm dying to know what happens. So, um, I've had Matthew on, who used to be the CEO of Heavy Metal. Maybe
Yes.
he knows who we could contact. If you don't
Yeah.
mind, I'll ask him, and I'll send you the information if you want.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, because
I don't want to
obviously
overstep.
he would know. Obviously he would know
Yeah.
who's pulling the strings up there now, or who is investing in it now. So that would be great. And maybe they have a plan. I just don't know what it is. So and maybe that's wise, because I come on shows like this, and I run my mouth and I get myself in trouble, and then I get the email. What do you mean if we had balls? What's that supposed to mean?
I love it, man. I love it. I don't know if you love it, but I love it for
Yeah, just watching an old guy end his career.
No, man, your career is strong, man. Last thing I wanted to talk about, and I've only heard rumbles about this, but you have a title with Image Skybound coming out next year. And according to quotes of you, this is going to get you canceled, called The Commissioned. Am I right on that?
I have to kind of embargo that a little bit,
Oh, okay.
except to say that, like, I had an interview about the Black Panther thing,
Oh, okay.
and we're talking about the Black Panther thing, and we're wrapping up the interview. This is AIPT, I think.
Oh.
Um, we're wrapping up the interview, and on our way out the door, the interviewer, he goes, "Well, now, it's a standard question. What else are you working done. And I'm like, well, we got this thing over here, we got this thing over here, we got this thing over here, and Rich Johnson, who's a pal. I love Rich Johnson. He sort of saw that interview, which had nothing to do with these other projects, and he seized on this one line. It's one line in the article is like 1,500 words or something like that. It's one sentence about this. He picked that up, made it a headline.
Got you.
My phone rang.
So now you just do it again, Christopher. I apologize. You want me to cut all this?
No, no, hey, no. It's like I'm just saying that well, I have officially embargoed information about any of these other things, not just that, but there's a number of things that I think are actually going to hit the streets within the next year or so. In fact, some of this stuff I've been working on a very long time. And by the way, that line about me getting canceled, I was joking. It was a joke. It was a
Okay.
little funny. It was like, oh, you think that's bad? Wait till you see
Yeah, yeah.
this.
So
It was.
obviously, that's all I got out of that was you have a new title coming, and your quote of this thing is going to get me canceled. So that's all I took from that article. That
Yeah,
proves your point that
it's just,
people take
it's just
titles.
it's just more of the sort of Quantum and Woody
Yeah,
sort of humor where you bite the hand that feeds you a little bit, but these days, these hands, they're very touchy about being bitten. I mean, when we were working for Acclaim, we actually had a page, we had an ad that we did where, like, in the ad on the page, I wrote this page where the lawyers come downstairs from Acclaim and
yeah.
chastise us, and in the comic book, and I went, Tommy, the thing you have to understand about me is that I'm David Letterman. Okay. Now, if you think back in the day when Carson was still on the air, you had Johnny Carson, and he was followed later by David Letterman. And then when it came time for Carson to retire, and he didn't retire, they shoved him out. But let's just pretend he retired. Okay. When it came time for Johnny to retire, the question was, do we move Dave up or do we play it safe and we go with Jay Leno? Jay Leno was Johnny's guest host, and he fit that paradigm a lot better. And they decided to play it safe. And in so doing, they kind of lost Letterman, and Letterman, of course, went over to CBS and became a huge success. And then there was the battle back and forth because then Jay became number one again, and who cares? But the point I'm trying to make is that there's a kind of mainstream voice, and then there's whatever the hell it is that I do. So part of the reason why my career track is as jigsaw puzzle as it is that I- you know I'm Letterman, and I'm Letterman in a world where, particularly now that the corporate interests have such a direct input on the comic books themselves. uh, it's kind of a Jay Leno world. It's kind of a, do you really want to give Superman to Christopher Priest? Well, last year or 23, I think it was 23, 24, you got to see what a Superman Christopher Priest Superman was.
Yeah.
And it wasn't subversive. I think it read just like Superman. I think you're worrying about nothing. But you know, they're not going to call me to write Iron Man, and they're not going to call me and go, "Hey, we need a new guy to write the Flash." They're not going to call me because I'm David Letterman. At least I assume that's part of the reason. And that's just kind of the way it is. Guys like me and say Tom King, we kind of come at it a different way. And every time Tom handles a character, he discovers something completely unique and something that was there all along that we didn't see until Tom showed it to us. And that's one of those gifts that like Alan Moore has. That's a Neil Gaiman level type of genius that Tom has. And but it comes at a cost where maybe you're scared to put to put a guy like that on a book, and I don't know. So anyway, I think that's all I meant by the one-off comment, by the cancel thing is just that, you know, we're up to something, I'm up to several things at different publishers. So I'm
Mhm.
being as vague as humanly possible. Um, and some of them, I think they're all fun.
Yeah.
And I think they're all harmless. They don't mean any harm to anybody. But it's the type of David Letterman, throwing shit off the roof, that kind of stuff. It's priest throwing stuff off the roof, and that may upset some people. I hope not. I don't think Dave was trying to upset people. I think he was just doing what he thought was funny, and that's kind of what I'm up to. And I feel really blessed that a lot of the stuff that we've worked very hard on for a very long time, some of it for many years, is finally, wow, it's almost done. So I think within the next year and a half, you'll be totally sick of me because there'll be a bunch of stuff out there.
Well, I'm glad to hear that, Christopher. Your career is legendary. You've touched so many amazing characters from Milestone, Static Shock, all the way up to Superman, and
But not the Flash.
not the Flash.
Not the
Not
Flash.
not
You
the
know.
Flash, not the Flash, but so many other amazing characters. But you are a legend in a lot of comic book fans' minds when it comes to storytelling, Christopher. I can't tell you how much I appreciate getting to meet you and being able to have you on our podcast and talk about some of the things that you are working on. Do you have plans, Christopher? I know you've hit a few cons. Do you have cons lined up for the rest of the year that you're going to be at? Will you be at San Diego or any of those places?
No, I'll be in New Orleans.
Okay.
That's coming up, and a bunch of others that I have to kind of like look at my
Yeah, yeah.
my my date book for. I have an agent that kind of just tells me, go here, go to the airport, and oh, okay, you know. So, but yeah, but I think I know early July I'll be at that convention in New Orleans,
Excellent.
and then in August, oh, Terrificon
Oh, you'll be
is
at
in
Terrific,
August.
right? Yeah.
Yeah, so I'll be at Terrificon in Connecticut, and a bunch of other stuff right through November or whatever. So yeah, I'll be around.
Excellent, excellent. Well, Christopher, just to be super respectful of your time, thank you so much for joining me today. Everybody get out and get Sonja Reborn. It'll be in comic shops in August. All the links are below. We're going to make it very easy for you. And there's a lot of other stuff. It sounds like that's coming from Christopher. So you might get sick of him over the next year, he said, but a lot of really great things happening. And I'm glad you're so busy, Christopher. Love your writing.
I appreciate it, Tommy, and sorry for getting your name wrong. I'm a moron.
No, no, you're good, my friend. You're good.
All right.
You're good.
All right, let's talk again after the world to come two comes out, two or three comes out,
Okay.
and then people go, oh,
I would absolutely love that. I'll reach out as soon as those
you're
issues.
gonna hear this huge all over the internet, like
You put your head outside near a comic book store and everybody's like,
yeah, exactly. Oh, now okay. So anyway, there you go.
I love it. Well, thank you, sir. I appreciate your time, and it was absolute honor and blast for me to be able to meet you.
All right, nice to meet you too.
All right.
You're still here? It's over. Go home. Go.